All right, so here we are. Happy Friday, everybody. I am here with Pat Libby, good colleague and friend of mine, and very special person. And we're going to learn more about her world a little bit. And this is part of a new series that I'm introducing for High Five. One of my goals is we're very much invested in socially conscious, purpose-driven organizations. And so what I'm going to be doing is interviewing individuals like Pat who are leaders within the nonprofit community or healthcare, life sciences industry, or education, or anywhere where there's a public benefit, and including people who love them and support them. So they can be leaders within the organizations, or they can be outside but supporting them in some way. And there's this great opportunity to really shine a spotlight on all the cool things going on in the community. So thank you, Pat, for being here.
Sure.
Why don't we just start off, and Pat, just to kind of cue her up a little bit, Pat is an expert in the nonprofit field, and she's an author of a couple books and working on, is it 2 more?
Yes.
Yeah, continuously working on 2 more books, and has been an executive director within the nonprofit sector and has been a consultant, founded the Nonprofit Leadership Institute for University of San Diego, and many other things. So I'll let Pat do the talking to fill that out. But why don't we start off, Pat, and this is because it's High Five career coaching. I'm always interested in people's favorite jobs. So I'm going to have you answer that first. What's the most favorite job you've had in your career?
Well, it's funny that you asked that because it's difficult to figure out what job I didn't like, because I've been really lucky and I've had a lot of fun jobs in my career. And my first full-time job out of college was working at a community food and nutrition program. And what we did is we helped people in low-income communities set up community gardens. And then we also direct marketed farmers' produce into public housing developments. This was in Boston, so that people could have access to high quality food. And that was a really cool learning experience. But I mean, people from San Diego might say, oh, her favorite job has to be, launching the Nonprofit Institute and creating the graduate programs and the research center and all of that. But probably my favorite job was I used to run a trade association of 60 nonprofit developers that worked only in low-income communities in Massachusetts.
Oh, wow.
And when I took the organization over, it was very glamorous. I always tell people this story. It had $5,000 in the bank, and it owed $3,000 in debt. And it was located on a second floor office next to a hair salon. And when I left 8 years later, that year we leveraged close to $180 million in below market financing agreements for community development. And the organization was a national model. And it's still a national model today. So, and that was 25 years since I left it. So that makes me really, really proud of, the fact that I built it, it's still continuing, it's doing great work, and it's helping low-income people all over Massachusetts.
That is amazing, Pat. Wow. That's quite an accomplishment. And the ripple effects, right? Because it's all the other nonprofits and all what they're doing, right? So
exactly.
To build their capabilities in that way, it has that multiplier effect. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So, Wow, that's awesome. So what would you say then is your sweet spot today? I mean, you've that was kind of a while ago, right? And so what would you say is kind of your area that you like to live in now?
In terms of my work that I do,
The work you do, yeah, in terms of the support you provide to the different, I mean, I know
clients.
you do the head hunting and things of that nature, and you do a lot of strategic planning and
Exactly. I do board development work and I like to do it all. I always joke with my clients that if I did one thing all the time, like if I did strategic planning all the time, or if I did executive search all the time, or board work all the time, or if I wrote books all the time, I always think if I just did one thing, I always joke I drink heavily. Because I like the variety. I like all the clients. I like to have fun. So I like to have my brain engaged in different ways and doing different things and learning new things.
yeah,
So yeah. So it's all really, for me, work is fun,
yeah.
and yeah, I like to learn, and yeah, so it's fun.
So what's something that you've learned in the last year, either yourself or about the industry?
Well, first of all, I hope we have all learned a lot about ourselves during, COVID,
Yeah.
because these are just unprecedented times. And I think the most important thing is I'm a very spiritual person. And
Mhm.
so to try to stay spiritually centered and grateful,
Mm.
because it's so easy to say, I can't do this because of COVID.
Right.
So you have to say, okay, well, I'm just grateful that I have these wonderful friends who call me all the time, and that I can walk around my neighborhood, and that I'm safe and healthy, and those kinds of things. So I think I'm someone who I try to live a life that's grounded in gratitude. And I think this year, you really have to focus on that every day, very consciously, multiple times a day, so that you don't feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, kind of living in the moment, right? It's just
Yeah.
about the
Mhm.
isolation we have.
Yeah.
And so because of the variety that you enjoy, and I know you work with a lot of different organizations currently, but also just over the years and having been, running the nonprofit institute as well. Well, what are some of the trends you've noticed within nonprofits that relate to, effective leadership or not effective? I mean, is it improving? Is it stable? I mean, what shift have you noticed?
Well, I think I've noticed three different trends. One is in terms of my search work, that there are an increasing number of executive directors who have graduate degrees. And I think that's important. Higher education hones your critical thinking skills and also gives you a lot of hard skills for understanding how to do this kind of work. And it's a very complex endeavor running a nonprofit. So I'm seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
Second, because of the Black Lives Matter movement,
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot more attention that's being paid to diversity. I'm a little nervous about it in the sense that I think I don't want it to be a trend. I want it to be something that's lasting and deep and meaningful. So I think people have to do work and be very conscious about it in order to make sure that their organizations are welcoming to people of color, and at all levels, that the board, the staff, and not just the staff people at the bottom rung, but staff people all at the top rungs and throughout the organization are people of color and representative of of the community at large. And the third thing that I'm seeing, which again, I think is a result of COVID, and I hope it lasts, is I think that people are starting to realize that they have to take care of themselves. Because in the nonprofit sector, so many people have these martyr complexes where they have to be working 1 million hours a week, taking care of other people.
Right.
And, you and I have had this conversation, Mike, several times, because I always say, God created the world in 6 days and then God rested. And if God can rest, you can unplug from your social media and you can rest and really take a day off. And I think it's just very, very, very healthy for your brain. So I think people are realizing we're all forced to be in front of our computers more than usual. And people are realizing that I have to unplug and I have to take deep breaths and, I have to take better care of myself. So those are the 3 things I'm seeing.
Yeah. I mean, it gets fatiguing. I know that by 3 o'clock every day, usually I'm just like buzzed out on the screen because we're looking at these, screens by Zoom or whatever, at these tiny little people and all that. We're not getting the 3-dimensional, right? A lot of focused attention.
Yeah.
And the interplay of people working from home, they're setting those boundaries. So yeah, that's great. So what would you say is something is there a particular cause that you're most passionate about, or is there maybe a current organization you're working with that just kind of lights you up? They're doing some cool things.
Well, I love all my clients. I get very emotionally attached to my clients.
Yeah.
But the cause that I am most passionate about is lobbying and getting nonprofits to understand that they need to participate in the political process. I'm really excited about the Black Lives Matter movement for 2 reasons. One, I think it's changing the way that people look at each other. And, the fact that we've been able to see these videos on our phones because we're all at home, I think has changed people's consciousness about things. But the other reason that I'm very excited about the Black Lives Matter movement, and it started before, this year, people think, it's brand new, but it's been around for a while, is the number of bills that have passed that are addressing different issues that have been raised by the Black Lives Matter movement. And right now, people don't understand that charitable nonprofits, which are most nonprofits, can legally lobby. They can also register people to vote, and that doesn't even count towards a lobbying limit. So any nonprofit, let's say you're a community health center, you can register people to vote. You can bring people to the polls and organize, buses or whatever to get, or bike parades to get people to the polls, or show people how to fill out ballots. None of that counts as lobbying. You can't endorse a candidate for office, so you can't say to people,
would compromise your 501c3 status?
Not at all. Not at all. And you can work on legislation. You can work on teaching a course now at USD, a grad course on lobbying. And I've taught it for many years with my friend Howard Wayne, who's a former legislator. And our students have passed, I can't even count the number of bills that have been really significant in California. So they've made a huge impact through lobbying. So that's the thing I'm most passionate about because, as nonprofits are always trying to make the world better in some way. But even if you are, for instance, a violinist with the San Diego Symphony or the Boston Symphony, you have an obligation to think, if there isn't music education in public schools, how will young people appreciate this music or be inspired to become a violinist? So you can't look at, this is just my job, I just play the violin. It's part of this larger societal change that we need to see happen, and every nonprofit person needs to lobby.
That's amazing. And I wonder how many nonprofits are even aware of that, of what you just shared.
Very few. There are 4% that basically publicly elect to lobby as charitable organizations. So that's really low.
There's a lot of upside opportunity then to have that much more impact, and particularly with an election coming up and all of that.
Yeah.
A huge role in getting people.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's amazing. So, Pat, my last question is, what's something fun, right? Kind of an unknown quirk that you may have. Maybe your husband's aware of that, but an unknown quirk that you have, or a secret talent, that would surprise people.
Well, I don't know if I have any secret talents, but I guess maybe an unknown quirk is that, most people would probably assume, because I'm a nerd, that I read 2 newspapers a day from cover to cover, which I do. But I start every day reading my horoscope and the comics before I read any news, because I feel like, I don't want to take, everything is so overwhelming, I got to just read fun stuff and relax before I get into, what Trump and Biden are saying or what's happening with the economy.
Right. Yeah. Start with some positivity. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'm a big fan of Big Nate, and I read all the comics pretty much.
Oh, fun. I read them with my son every day. Yeah, that's how we start our mornings. So it's not most grown adults don't admit that they read the comics. So I love that you just shared that.
I love the comics, and I also read Dear Abby.
Yeah.
And it's funny because somebody asked me once, if you could pick any career that wasn't your own, what would it be? And that's what it would be. I would be Dear Abby or Ann Landers. Oh, I would love that. That would be so much fun. But nobody would be surprised about that, because I give everybody advice.
You'd be a cheer for that. Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Pat, thanks so much for being my guest and having this conversation. And to everyone watching the replay on this or whatnot, feel free to share this out with your LinkedIn connections and Facebook friends and YouTube. Send the YouTube link that's being broadcast on YouTube as well. And we'll be having these interviews periodically on Fridays, so stay tuned. And if you have someone in the community you would like to nominate or to see interviewed, then private message me, and we'll see what we can do.
Great. Thanks for having me, Mike.
Thanks so much, Pat. All right. Take care. Have a great week. Labor Day weekend. Yeah.
You too. Bye-bye.